Hello and welcome to Indiepocalypse Radio, the one and the only radio show about the game bundle magazine. I don't like calling it a bundle because I don't like bundles. I don't care much for them, like from an aesthetic and like I have a lot of issues with bundles. I won't get into bundles at the moment. But anyway, it's not just me here today. I'm Andrew, by the way, the host. Um, It's not just me today. I have guests like I do every week because it'd be weird if I didn't. And my first guest here is Julian. Hey, Julian, how you doing?
Hi, I'm like okay.
Okay.
It's January, as most people are aware. I'm not fully aware of it, and as a result of January, I have about 60% of my brain.
Okay.
But I'm really happy to be here tonight, even
Uh,
though time is fake.
no, I no. Yes, I've realized that I was on a big time is fake kick. Like when now that we've transitioned into a new year, and people are like, "Oh,
Yeah.
welcome to the new year," and it's like, well, it's the same as the old year. It's just we crossed this calendar date that we've subscribed to everything.
Oh yeah, I like calendar dates because otherwise I would be completely lost. I
Right.
appreciate the year. It's not very precise. Like we have leap years because we haven't quite mastered the calendar
Yeah.
part.
We
But
we couldn't.
and other stuff like days of the week, that means nothing to me anymore. I have no idea what's going on.
No.
And
You know.
daylight savings time really messes me up. So I take a hit for both of those, but otherwise I'm good, I
I've yeah.
guess.
Weather has some similarly messed me up considering where I'm used to a frigid climate. It is not yet a frigid climate.
But yeah, where are you?
I'm in New England.
Oh, me too. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I'm in good old Massachusetts.
Yeah, me too. I live on the North Shore.
I don't live on the North Shore.
You don't have to
Yeah,
say, but
we don't
hello
need to
from
say where
another
each
part of
other live. That's
Massachusetts.
unnecessary. But the point, as you can, I'm sure you can attest, is our Massachusetts being a relatively small state and not likely having similar weather. I've forgot about the holiday season like the last 4 years because it's just been like 40 degrees out.
Yeah, we had
People,
see, I'm by the ocean,
oh
so we any weather that happens is extreme. If we get a little nor'easter, we get a big nor'easter here.
yeah,
And it does it does wacky zacky stuff because of the unique humidity and wind patterns of the sea. But it's always, always nice. It was like legitimately like 50 degrees until like a week ago. So now it's acting like winter.
yeah.
I'm not sure how I feel about that.
No, I always think I'm like, yes, finally there'll be no more winter this year for the horribleness that represents. But then
Uh,
it just moves over a month or so.
yeah, everything shifts forward. I think that's the thing I've noticed. Just it gets colder later in the year, right? So instead of being like cold before Halloween the way it used to be that I remember, it doesn't really get cold until after Thanksgiving ish.
Yeah,
But that means that it stays cold until like June 1st.
right. Yeah.
Um, so it's not that we were losing winter; it's that the whole of winter is shifting, and I that's the part of time that's fake. I don't know how to measure seasons anymore.
No, right.
Uh,
And it always tricks me because I was like, ah, yes, here comes May, time for the cold to be over, and then it's not
no,
yet.
and it's not. Yeah. And in my head, because I'm from New England, and New England is very famous for its like extremely delineated seasons, and
Yeah.
people joke that like, oh well, the winter's very long and all these other things. It's like, yeah, okay, it is, but they're very clearly different seasons.
Yeah.
You know, in my head, I'm very attached to this like childhood version of New England, which works a lot it's like Stardew Valley. Like
Right.
like the day changes and that everything is dramatically different, and you're like, great, cool, now it's spring.
Yeah, you can
Um,
measure it in like terms of layers.
yeah, and that doesn't exist anymore. Or I have an incredibly limited memory of what weather was like. But I remember winter being like a very specific amount of snow at a pretty approximate time, and like you
Yeah.
could go skiing reliably because it would be dry enough, it wouldn't be slushy. I don't think I don't ski anymore. This is in my head, my fantasy
Yes.
version of like New England where everything's fun. Um, yeah, I don't even recognize what's going on outside. I think it's just dark.
Yeah, it's just dark and like kind of cold, maybe. I might
Yeah.
I'll put on a coat, but I won't need it, or I won't need to bundle up.
Yeah.
I won't be freezing through my coat. Now let's, as I like to start off every show, or not every show, but I like to ask every guest who appears on the
Mhm.
show.
Mhm.
How did you hear about Indiepocalypse?
Um, I found it through itch.io. Um, and it must have been one of those things where like somebody, liked it or rated it or whatever, and then it
Yeah.
popped up on my feed. Itch
Okay.
has like a really weird fusion of social media and like storefront. So,
Yes.
I'd go and I'd like buy something from someone who was cool, and then I would see the things that they liked and rated. And I think there was a couple of degrees separation there, and then I saw that. And first of all, I was like, oh, a paying thing. That's unique.
Yes.
And and it was so unique that I actually like sort of lurked on a couple rounds of it where I
Right.
like joined the jams that you use to like curate, and I just kind of like watched and saw what happened because I was like, is this a weird scam?
That's. I think people should always be skeptical of everything, including me.
I think, yeah, which is not you personally.
Right.
I just don't know. I didn't personally know anybody involved, and so I was like, this looks cool, but maybe this is a weird scam, or like maybe this is overly ambitious, and the person running it like will never follow up. And so
Yeah.
I saw it actually fall through, and I was like, oh, person who is running a thing, that's cool, and it seemed legitimate, legitimate businessman's indie apocalypse scene. So I submitted, and what was cool for me and very encouraging was that I actually got rejected the first time I submitted, but I got like a really nice email that was like, just like keep sending this in actually.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So then I did. And eventually there was, I guess, room for me in one of them. That was
Yeah.
really neat.
Well,
It was a cool experience.
yeah, there's like I realized probably like 4 or 5 issues in that like there were some games that were like very good, but obviously I can't fit more than I only have 10 per issue. And then people
Oh
weren't
yeah. Okay.
resubmitting them and they were removing their games from the old jam, so I no longer had a way to contact them.
Oh
No.
no.
I was like, "Wait, I want someone dropped out of this issue and I want to include your game because you were like what I think of as like a hard 11 if you will, where it's like there
Huh?
are some games where it's like if a game drops out, I'm immediately emailing you and saying you're in.
Right.
So that's why I kind of implemented a waiting list to say, you're it. You didn't get in, but like, there's like 3 tiers of emails where it's like you got accepted, or you got on the waiting list, or you just get the general itch email. Which, if you
Uh-huh.
just get the general itch email, it means you're never going to be in the zine. But I feel mean to tell people
Wow.
that.
Wow. Or should you be spilling your secrets like that?
I don't mind. Like I like to be pretty transparent about my process. It just
That's cool.
feels mean to tell people that like I have a little. I mean, I did like a whole year end round it right up, and I mentioned it in there that I have a something I call the line in my Excel sheet,
Hmm.
and games below that will never be included because they're just like not interesting in any way, and sometimes just technically miserable to play.
Right. Wow. Well, I guess I feel like I have a seal of approval now. That's
No,
cool.
yeah, no, yours was
Yeah.
definitely you had good stuff, and then I was like, well. And a lot of times I tell people to resubmit because I feel bad to turn them down like 3 times in a row or something.
Right. I only started really using itch like in 2020,
Yeah.
which I almost said this year, but you know what I mean. Um, basically, I don't know if you're interested in hearing that story, but
No, tell me
I
about
had
it.
sort of like had an account on it casually because I was once in a while buying things from friends,
Right.
but pretty much had like a dead end project stuck in draft, and that was it for my creator dashboard. Um, and then almost a year ago, uh, now in March 2020, I was supposed to have in March 2020. I debuted a book.
Yeah.
I'm a short story writer, and I had a book come out, and everything in Massachusetts went into lockdown literally a week before my like release event that
Yes.
was going to be at a was going to be at Trident Books in Boston, and I was really looking forward to it. And it was like, wow, there's definitely bigger problems right now, but this sure is annoying. So
Yeah, I had planned. I made there's like a physical zine proponent because at the bare minimum, I was planning on going to like Boston Hassle Flea Market regularly.
yeah, yeah, I was gonna tour. I was gonna do all this stuff for this book that just couldn't happen. And one of the things that I arranged with my publisher, because it's a fairly small publisher, and there are obvious limitations to working with a smaller publisher, but then there are other things, which is that sometimes it's just one guy, and you can be like, "Hey, can I do this?"
Yeah,
And if he says yes, it's pretty cool.
and you just
So
have to
one of
ask
the things
five
that,
different guys.
yeah, types of guys. One of the types of guys is a guy who runs a small press, and that's a very broad category of guy type, but yeah, it's a guy. And basically, I was like, "Can I sell, like PDF ebooks of the book directly?" Because with book publishing,
Right.
if you make any royalties, and they're like a small fraction of the actual cost of the book, if you make any royalties, you don't just like get the money the next day. It's like once or twice a year,
Yeah.
you get like a Excel sheet and a modest sum. And I was like really hurting for money, and I was like, I want to sell this book, and I don't have any money, and I think I could probably sell some copies if I could sell it directly. So I got his blessing to put the book online, and literally the only marketplace that felt like legible to me was Itch,
Yeah.
because I looked at other stuff like Gumroad and things like that, and I actually can't make sense of models like Patreon. I really don't like them.
Right.
Which isn't to say that I don't understand how they work. I just don't like them for various reasons. And so I just put it up on Itch because I felt like I had the most. It felt like upload the file, right? What is in the file?
Yeah.
Pick a background color, sell it to people, get the money. Like it's very straightforward in that way.
Yeah.
And I'm to understand that as far as selling video games and digital downloads, it is actually one of the better things out there, because I've heard the horror stories about like trying to get something on Steam or even like Amazon, and how like nightmarish that is.
Yeah. Let me tell you.
So
Let me tell
yeah,
you
no,
about
go ahead.
my rejections from Humble like 6 months in a row.
Yeah, good old,
And
the video games world is weird.
yeah.
So anyway, so all of a sudden I became like itch.io super user. And I don't know if this is an interesting story whatsoever, but that all of a sudden there were all these other little things that I hadn't been paying close attention to that were so interesting to me that I wasn't going to see if I was out touring a book. So I really rescoped my 2020 and decided to, just tweet periodically that I have a book and here's the link, and
Yeah.
then sort of commit myself to smaller projects to keep the hamster in my head running on his wheel. And so Indiepocalypse kind of came into my sphere that way, where I was making little weird things anyway, and was like, oh, this looks like a really cool thing of really weird things. This is great. And
Yeah.
that's it. That's my incredibly long story
Oh.
about how I got on a website.
And how you found Indiepocalypse. Usually
Yeah.
that story is just I clicked on the jam pages and I saw it and I said yes, thank you. And
Yeah, but I mean, like,
Yeah.
I came to the whole thing as an outsider.
Right. Yeah.
I have never made a game until like 6 months ago. So
Yeah.
here I am.
That's you don't need like 7 years of making games. I honestly would encourage people not to spend 7 years making games, especially making one game for like their entire life and then releasing
Yeah.
it and hoping it'll come out and people will buy it. Seems terrifying and a mess, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. Even though sometimes I go to Steam charts and I look at things and I go, "Ooh, 6 all-time players. That's not a good look."
No, it's tough. Video games. I guess I guess there must have been a time when crowdfunding really worked
Yeah.
for video games. And I think if you could fund it and you didn't have any debt, that seems like a pretty cool way to spend some time.
That is like the
But
secret to most like small business and creative adventures is that little parenthetical of, and you have no debt.
yeah, in full disclosure, I'm married to somebody who ran an indie video game studio for
Yeah.
many years. And basically when people would ask him like, how do you do it? He's like, I don't have any student debt.
Hey,
And that's his
ask me how
his
I
like
do Indiepocalypse.
Yeah, do you not have any student debt?
I don't have any student or I paid off my auto loans and my student loans.
And here we are today.
Yeah, that's basically where I got the money to do this every month.
Right. So, whereas what I'm doing, which is PDFs that make you feel bad,
Yeah.
requires very little up front and fits a little bit more with my project budgets.
Of zero, yeah.
Zero, yeah.
Yeah, I sometimes feel people approach me like I'm a bigger venture than I am. I think it's or like people ask me like, oh, like ask me like as if I were a team. I'm like, oh no, it's just me. There is no team. I'm just a person.
Right.
Like, what's your team's budget? Team's budget. It's like my budget, and I guess infinite because I don't make money and I don't obviously have a budget. It's just how much can my personal expenses sustain?
Yeah, I think one of the weirder things of doing a project like Indiepocalypse is you probably will be perceived really differently depending on who you talk to. And you can just be like, it's just me, a guy, I've got an MS Paint doodle as my icon or whatever. And, here I am. And every single thing that I make, there's a disclaimer that says, it's just me, a guy, and I'm paying you out of my PayPal. It doesn't matter how many times you say that. The simple act of like organizing a project is like a specialized ability. Right. Even if as a lack of student loan debt aside, not everybody can follow through. And so the simple fact that you're doing that is miraculous and rare. And some people will sort of observe it and be like, oh, cool, that's great, that guy's reliable. And other people will be like, that must be a really famous, powerful person.
Yes, I am mostly the former and certainly not the latter.
Yeah, but it's strange, these like interactions that sometimes you can have when you're doing something with any amount of stability, is people will sometimes treat you, for better or worse, like you're like an arbiter of the industry. And that's a thing that's just true in the arts in general that I've observed.
It's so weird, like especially just like seeing, like I get that occasionally with people who are, I just think of them as like the sub-hundo crew. People have like very few followers and very few like very small like presence, and like talking like, I guess I am somebody to somebody, but it's very bizarre. Right. And I'm glad you just trusted me, because if I looked at myself and what I'm doing from like a lens of just like complete unknown, I would just trust that person entirely. My position seems extremely suspect. And it's like, what's this guy's angle?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the big tell that you're from New England, honestly.
That I distrust myself and I have...
and everybody around you.
Yeah.
And you probably have a personal space bubble of at least 8 feet. Like, that's great regional culture.
I remember being in Toronto for an event, and like after having dinner with like some of the people up there, everyone hugged and they said like with their goodbyes, and they were coincidentally also other Boston-based people up there. And when we said goodbye, we just kind of like did not touch, and we just like, it was a casual goodbye. I was like, oh right, this is a weird hell region where people are cold and hate each other.
Yeah, it's complicated. It's a double-edged sword, right? On the one hand, I like to sometimes think of it as minding your damn business.
Yes.
And other times, it's very, very cold and weird and unfriendly. And I can see. I have enough friends from like California.
Yeah.
And I've visited there enough times to know that I don't get California. And,
right.
and I respect the existence of California, not that much, but I don't disrespect it any more than I don't really like any state in the United States, which
Yeah.
is, because it's like a colonial project, right?
Right.
So the nation state problem aside, like in terms of Californian culture, it's like, yeah, you guys do you. I guess I can meet you there. But this time last year I was there for like 3 weeks, and this feels like generalizing, but I felt like everybody just like got out of bed at 10:30 in the morning after a ketamine binge, and we're like, you want to do hot yoga and program? And I'm like, I don't want any of this at all.
Yeah.
And that, sometimes that's me being like, this is bullshit. And sometimes that's me being like a guarded, fucked up person who doesn't know how to relax and
Right.
ever get used to using like therapy words in casual conversation without laughing. Like, and then I'm like, I'm the one with the problem, right? I'm the one
Yes.
who's like embarrassed secondhand when people say like psychoanalysis terms to talk about their
Yes. No, I have like, as someone who's entering like this cultural space, and and becoming like theoretically a cultural personality or whatever you want to call them. It's weird, like balancing of like how guarded I want to be versus how much people expect you to be open about yourself and know like where all your alignments are and everything.
Yeah.
And it's like I look at people who are like an artist who is just like, I'm 100% anonymous. I appear in public with a giant mask on my face. I'm like, yeah, though. Like, what if though?
Yeah, I get that. We have someone like that, a local folk hero called Keytar Bear.
Yeah.
You may be familiar with Keytar Bear.
Sounds. I know him through. May even be somebody we both know, for all I know.
Yeah, like I know him too, but I also love his shtick, which is that he's a man who plays guitar really well in public and also wears an adorable fuzzy light brown bear suit while he's doing it. And not like interestingly, it's not like a fursuit.
Right.
It's definitely like a teddy bear mascot suit.
Yes.
And somehow I couldn't tell you what the difference is, but it is definitely more like a big teddy bear than a fursuit. And I love that. I'm like, yeah, don't let anyone perceive you. That's good. That's so good.
There's a difference between a fursuit and a costume, and that line I think is something you learn over time.
I feel like sometimes the cartoon features in the face usually signal fursuit, and sometimes when it looks more like folk doll, I'm like, oh, that's like a big teddy bear or something.
Right.
But I'm not like a sociologist of furries. I'm just friends with a ton of them.
Yeah.
So I can see, oh, that's not a fursuit on site. But I guess, I don't know. I guess like philosophically, I can't tell you what is not a fursuit. But Keytar Bear is cool, and to me, he's like a symbol of the things I like about New England bubbles, which is that like, yeah, actually you play pretty good. He only shows up to jam, and he doesn't sing, which I appreciate.
Right.
I don't. I just want instrumental music if I'm going to casually run through a street musician. I don't know.
No, yes, you're right.
He's actually good. And then he completely conceals his identity, and I love that. I respect that.
That's that. Yeah, see, that is in a way I'm weirdly balanced between the two. It's more like I like to present myself in only within certain like acceptable zones. Like I'm sure I could, and like how what those zones are ill-defined and impossible for me to know until I get there. Like I have no issues appearing in public as myself, but I don't generally like being photographed.
Right.
And like
yeah.
I'm sure I could appear on like a more produced talk show. Like if this show was like a public access style show where I had like actual cameras set up and a desk, I'm sure I could do that. But like us all sitting in front of our computers staring into the middle distance as we talk on Zoom is like unappealing to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that there's no camera in this show. That's great.
Yeah,
That's like a huge bonus. I don't like making eye contact with my computer,
right.
and there's really no substitute. And I'm also one of those people who, in person, if I'm listening attentively to you, I am staring at like your shoulder or like behind you.
Yeah,
Um, I'm a rover listener. I listen by moving around. It's very annoying.
right.
But this is great. Audio is a great format because then nobody can see my face, and
Yes.
I can still be candid, and I don't have to worry about making somebody feel uncomfortable with the fact that I have 1,000 yard stare and resting bitch face, and the
Right.
combination is like a little freaky.
You don't have to
Actually,
worry. I don't have to worry about like what is behind me at my angle, my shot. I don't have to set
right.
things up. I don't have to worry about like people's different internet connections. It was like, and I knew like going into this that if I said like, oh, you all have to have cameras, because I may or may have not been invited and uninvited from a show because I didn't want to use my camera. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
I
No, I cameras. I guess cameras have become like a weird thing this
yeah,
past year, where like sometimes if you don't want to use your camera, people are like really hostile about it. They're like, why not?
right. It's like
And
this
I'm like,
weird like pretension to like professionalism that everyone feels like they need to have. I think.
yeah, I'm really uncomfortable with it. I don't know. If somebody asks me a direct question about an intimate subject, I
Yeah.
will just give you a blunt, truthful answer. I'm not trying to hide anything factually.
Right.
I just am a weird fucking guy, and I don't like being touched by strangers or looked at.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And I feel like, especially like I would get there would be guests that I am sure I would have had or will have on the show that wouldn't want to be on if they had to have a camera, and I just don't want to have that.
Yeah.
So it's and radio works just fine. What do you think podcasts are? They're radio shows. People fucking listen to podcasts all the time.
I used to have a couple of radio shows. Years ago, I had some so-called community shows on WZBC.
Yeah.
WZBC, for people who are not in New England, is Boston College Radio, and I don't know if they still do this. I didn't go to Boston College. I have no relationship with the Boston College community,
Yeah.
but I was living in Oak Square in Brighton, which is the neighborhood immediately outside of Boston College campus, and they did often have like what they called like community member run shows. I think probably because their students had school break and somebody had to be on the air.
Yeah.
But I would often get these like terrible hour shows that I had such a blast with, where it would be like 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. or 1 week straight in winter break or something bizarre like that.
Yeah.
And you can't swear, and you have to, because it's like a nonprofit radio, you have to play like a PSA, public service announcement, every such and such minutes. But like that's it. Other than that, I would just go in with these like really meticulously curated, because I was like in my early 20s and I was like very precious about my
right,
incredible taste.
Of course.
And I could just call the show whatever I wanted and say whatever I wanted within FCC guidelines.
Yes.
Between things. That was so much fun. So I did have a radio voice. I'd be like, folks, you are listening to, like blah 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 on WCBC, and I would drop right down into the bottom of my throat, get real close to the mic.
It has definitely been strange sometimes, occasionally hearing a podcaster that I'm familiar with in a setting and they do not have their radio voice on and they just have their normal voice. And it's like, that is just strange. That is like clearly not the voice I have, but it's also clearly your normal speaking voice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Radio voice is a real thing. I kind of love it. I think it makes sense because radio and television and theater and all these different things, of course they're artificial. So of course the way that we do them is a little bit artificial.
Right.
Because otherwise you get this like, this is my avant-garde thing where people talk exactly like they actually do. And it's like, it's 3 hours long and really boring.
Right. And sometimes people recognize that they're like sloppy speakers and they need to clean up their language for a show that people are going to listen to.
Yeah. this is very improvisational and candid. So I've told like several boring stories already.
Right.
If I were my own podcast producer, I would have like written a script and made myself sound very interesting.
How? No, we're not here to make people. We don't care if people are interested here. We're just here to hang out and have a good time.
I wonder if anybody's actually watching the stream.
There are 4 people.
Hell yeah!
Which is usually hover around somewhere between 4 and 8, which is
That's
I would say the usual group. And then
I would call that success.
What was that?
I would call that success in internet terms. Yeah.
Yeah. This for a show that is just like a live stream of people who nobody knows on Twitch, and we're not like playing video games or something. And I didn't have my green screen and my gamer chair. And listen, I started the show because there were a bunch of I saw a bunch of studios and stuff, and they all had their gamer chairs, and this is their show, and they're playing. I start stuff because I hate other things. That's why I started Indiepocalypse, because I hated.
Oh yeah, we have that in common.
Yeah,
spite is a really good motivator.
I am of the horniness versus spite motivating. I am like 90% spite, I would say, most of the time.
Yeah, that's real.
But as we are getting close to the end of our segment,
yeah, sweet.
I have one question for you that I ask of every guest, and what would you recommend to all the gamers out there that is not a game? No games allowed.
I don't know. A fucking book?
Oh, shit. Do you have any books in particular?
No, just kidding. Let me think. Lots of things.
Be it a piece of art, be it a broad concept, be it a new hobby, all are allowed.
Yeah. So, like, the people who like video games specifically, is that my...
I don't know who listens to this. Maybe people who listen to this hate video games. It doesn't have to be related to the process of making games or enjoying games.
Right.
It's just kind of like, sometimes it feels like people who play games only play games.
It does feel like that, and I think it's one of the reasons why it took me so long to feel like I would even want to make a game, because it feels like the stakes are so high socially, which isn't to say that I'm worried about people rejecting me. It's not that simple. It's just more that like sometimes it even now, right, where all the barriers are lower, it still sometimes feels very hard to just try something.
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to be aware of all these other things. Even if you're like indie DIY, like actually now I have to go read 500 other people's PDFs that make you feel sad to know that I'm in dialogue with other work.
And the beauty is like I feel like the people who are like the gatekeeping, like douchey people in games have like the most basic tastes, as opposed to in maybe other mediums where they at least have like a little bit of pretension and like.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think these sorts of things can actually happen without anybody being a snob, right? Yeah. It happens because of volume,
right?
You know, you can't just walk into the room and like fart and say that you made a symphony. You have to like really understand that you're presenting conceptual art with your gas. So yeah, I guess something that I would recommend to people who consume a lot of games is conceptual art. Spend time looking up some conceptual artists, and do not try to reframe them as games. Resist the urge, because this happens all the fucking time, and it drives me up the wall. Where people will be like, I'm teaching a class on games, so I showed everybody Yoko Ono's Grapefruit and said it was an RPG. And I'm like, I understand what you're doing, but please stop. So I would encourage everyone to spend some time with some art. If you have access to an art museum that's open right now, definitely take advantage of it. If you can go on UbuWeb and just look up like the weirdest shit you can find, just click around on UbuWeb, look up some conceptual art, and try to resist the urge to understand it in terms of games. If it's digital art, don't think about game making. If it's interactive art, don't think about like LARPs. Don't think about TTRPGs. Not because it's unrelated totally, but because these things have their own context.
But Julian, I gotta ask, what's the point of art if I can't solve it?
Oh no. Well, that made me so tired I have to go back to bed.
Okay, well we're gonna go to break while you take a quick nap.
Yeah, I gotta take a nap because everybody's trying to find an algorithm to fix enjoying existence. So I guess
Welcome
that's my send off.
Before we go to break, I need to plug my new YouTube channel, Conceptual Art Sins.
Yeah.
And I'll see you all in about 3.5 minutes. Goodbye.
Thanks.
Well, I've got a little Honda, it ain't much but it's paid for.
He's got a little Honda, it ain't much but it's paid for.
2 doors is too few doors, 2 more doors makes 4 doors.
2 doors is too few doors, 2 more doors makes 4 doors.
Most times it's just a way to get from A to B.
Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. I'm still your host, Andrew. And now we are here with the second guest, Max. How you doing, Max?
I'm doing good. Doing just fine.
Perfect. That's an ideal way to be doing in a crowd of relative strangers is just fine. So, Max.
Just fine.
Just fine. Just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I am 31, beautiful boy.
Okay.
Just the most beautiful boy you might ever meet, perhaps. I live in Alston, Mass. I'm autistic. I write comedy podcasts that are about wizards going on dates or the Illuminati fucking up conspiracies throughout history. And I do various other comedy in the area. Or I did back when you could do comedy in an area.
You haven't been doing any Zoom improv?
No, because that feels like dying. It feels terrible. Have you done Zoom improv? It's the fucking worst.
I have not, no.
Christ. No, no. It's the people who do Zoom improv are just, rigor mortis takes over their forms, I tell you. It feels terrible. It is terrible. It has all the downsides of doing a podcast and doing a live performance that you can't edit it, but also it's, burned in forever, and there's no audience to build off of. It's terrible. No, thank you.
Yes, the people out there on Twitch and everything, just swinging for it and trying something because that was their life beforehand.
A bunch of my friends do that, and it makes them happy, and I'm happy for them. And I think sometimes they even make good shit, but it's not for me. Not for me. No, thank you.
Yeah, no, yes, exactly. I think there are plenty of podcasts that exist within the world of our quarantined life or even beforehand that were not people in the same room, that involved improvisation, and they did just fine. But
yeah,
I think it's honestly the camera aspect of it that just bugs me. To go back to our previous segment.
I was very briefly in a Zoom. So it started off as a live performance show, which was an improvised radio show, right? And it became an online Zoom thing. And I didn't want to. I too do not like having my face on camera.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do it because it's an improvised radio show. So I said, "Oh, there's no reason for me to do this." And they truly insisted. So I ended up just leaving. I was also going through a lot of shit at that point in time.
Right.
With it's been a real anno horribilis, if you will.
Sure.
So
yes.
It's going through a lot of personal emotional shit at the time. So that contributed to it, but it kind of was the final straw.
I believe we call them unprecedented times.
Truly. Nothing like living in the cool zone.
Yes.
Yes.
My life, for what it's worth, for better or for worse, has mostly been going the same, except I wear a mask all the time now. I live in a weird situation.
It sounds like all of us. Is it particularly weird?
It's a little, I suppose, but it's been a year.
So are you wearing a mask in your own home? Or
no,
out. Okay.
Indiepocalypse doesn't pay for itself.
Oh, yes. Yeah, no, I dig you.
I am not independently wealthy, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Sure. No, I mean, you could get the impression of that.
Yes. There is the need existing within the arts to pretend that you are successful all the time.
Yes, the opposite of imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Is what?
I am good
success syndrome. Yeah, that's the one.
But I think there maybe there is
intolerable pride.
Yes, I think there is maybe this idea of people want to support more successful things at the same time. So it's that's where you see Kickstarter funded in like 6 hours. I'm like, who gives a shit how fast your Kickstarter was funded? What does that mean?
Yeah. Is it good?
Right.
Is it a good thing you're making? Because let me tell you, trash love trash.
Exactly, but also same love same. So that's the trick. Same love same.
Tricky. Same love same. You got to find your niche. You got to find the thing that you love making, and then assume that other people are like you out there somewhere, and try and get it to them.
Right.
Oh.
While we're talking about trash,
I gotta say,
Oh, yes, no, you go. I'll get back to my thought later.
Oh, it's nothing. I was just gonna say, part of what I like about making shit that I like and then putting it out there is that it finds people who like it, and it makes me feel just less like I don't fit in anywhere in society.
Right.
Yeah. I really, really don't feel like most of the time when I'm in society that I'm supposed to be there.
Yeah.
Or are you going?
That's why I have you on here. That's why I try to like branch outside of like just games. That want to help create this, more arts communities or more whatever communities that people can be a part of, and create like something.
I like that a lot.
Create like a space for people.
Yeah, I dig it.
It's like part of talking about the previous segment of how I would view myself as suspect, but I know I'm not suspect. So, like, how do you?
There you go.
How do you make a community where the person at the top isn't a real shitheel? It's you not be a shitheel and then start it yourself. Which is what I'm hoping for.
Really pray that the power doesn't corrupt you.
No, because here's the trick: is I don't want anything to do with people, and want them to have very little to do with me. So.
The New England way. There's no way I would abuse my power because, frankly, I don't want to deal with it.
Exactly.
You and John Adams both.
Right? You can't create fucked up social dynamics if you don't want to be in social dynamics at all in the first place.
Exactly. And that's why we create utopias here in New England, like Fruitlands or, so many other various ideas.
To stick local for a moment, and I was thinking of trash. Have you been watching the Trash Night on like live streams?
Are they doing live streams now?
Yeah, yeah.
Shoot.
It's like the last Tuesday or last Thursday of every month.
I did not know that. I've got to tune in. I used to love going to Trash Night. I simply love a terrible film and making monkey shines at a picture show.
It's like the peak of my month is going to Trash Night and like turning it on. And it is so. No, go. You can go.
Our Trash Night audience is still weirdly horny, even over the internet.
Oh,
are they still shouting on the screen?
They are 100%. They shouted. They digitally type into the stream how horny they are. Yes, the Trash Night stream is very.
God
horny.
bless. God bless one of the 3 places in Boston where you're allowed to go and talk to people. God bless. Where you're allowed to be rowdy and not be destroyed for your impudence.
Yeah, and that is a beautiful thing, and I appreciate it. And even people who are not it's one of those things that like the quarantine has like allowed people to like try and just figure something out. And I think that's like a great example of people like, well, you can't obviously host a theater show, but what if we just use this platform that's here that lets us stream video and just hope nobody yells at us for streaming old movies?
So far, so good.
Yeah, they haven't banned yet.
Yeah,
but also, who's going to?
Pretty good track record.
Yeah.
Who's going to care?
Right. Who's going?
All those companies are defunct.
Exactly. Who's going to fucking come over to like something in the Stinkies about your old weird Seal movie? Who's going to come knocking down your Twitch door and say, "Knock it off"? Nobody.
You stole the Elf Bowling movie. We invested literally tens of dollars into making that film.
How dare you air our old hip-hop dance videos? I produced that for my PR firm.
We are a very litigious Christian community bulletin board.
Yes, and we are very online, and we are coming to get you. I actually saw someone on Twitter, someone posted a bad hip-hop dance thing, and the lady was smiling the entire time, and people who we're all from New England and weird and bitter because people smiling all the time online freaks me out. especially if it feels like very I pose for a camera or video smile. And I don't know if it's just me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know that when I smile, my face makes a terrible creaking sound, and I just look like I'm grimacing, or that sort of a thing. But I think we don't trust it. I mean, there's something to be said.
Yeah.
But I feel like a smile is something that's supposed to be, brief and transactional.
Right. Not forever frozen as you were like, listen, let's pivot, if we will, for a moment.
Absolutely, sure.
Tell me a little bit about. Okay, so this is a cool thing. Tell me a little bit about. I forget what they call it. You told me about this. I can't ask you about it. How did you find out about Indiepocalypse? I told you about it. That's how you found out about it. No, how did you?
Yeah, you told me. You told me. I
literally told you.
I found out. I learned it from you. I learned it from meeting you at the Black Market Flea. You had a booth set up. We were selling zines.
Yeah.
I bought one that had the Seinfeld OSR in it, which fucking rules.
Yeah,
we chatted.
That was like proto Indiepocalypse. People who make games should find a way to make money at the same time. Yeah, it was great. We chatted. You were selling your secondhand manga and various game zines, and that was before Indiepocalypse even started. And then I followed you on Twitter, and eventually you're like, "Hey, I'm doing this thing, Indiepocalypse games," and I think I just sponsored. Yeah, you were the
one
first.
Of the first 3 issues.
I was the
first sponsor or something.
Yeah, you and True Tales of the Illuminati. To plug.
Yeah, that's me, baby.
To plug a show.
Yeah.
It's a good show. It is one of those shows where I was like, I also have another anxiety of mine is people making art and asking me to try it, and I go, oh, what if it's bad though? Like, what if it's bad though? Luckily, it wasn't bad.
Worse than like. Thank you.
Luckily, it was good.
As a compliment.
Yeah.
I like it. It's a show that I'm proud of making. It's an audio drama, an audio sitcom. So a fiction podcast with a full cast.
Yeah.
About the Illuminati just fucking up conspiracies that they're trying to do throughout history.
No, it's good. I have not listened to Wiz Seeking Wiz to do your plugs.
Wizard
for
Seeking
you.
Wizard.
Oh,
well, Wizard Seeking Wizard's a whole weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wiz for Wiz is the Twitter account. Yeah, Wizard Seeking Wizard was literally just like, I need to make something. We can't get in the studio for True Tales.
Yeah.
And I'm going crazy, and I need to have something to occupy me. I'm gonna get strangers on the internet to send me wizard personal ads, and then I'm gonna make a wizard dating show. Where I'm hosted by a wizard from the depths of his crystal prison.
Yeah.
And that's just been to keep me going. But people seem to really like it. The people who do like it. But of the two, I'm definitely prouder of True Tales. Wizard Seeking Wizard is just to keep my hand in, just to have fun with it.
Yes. Sometimes you produce a monthly zine and get so good at it that you need more, that you suddenly have a bunch of free time out of nowhere, so you start a radio show,
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you're too powerful and cool, and everyone likes you too much, and you're the most beautiful boy.
Yeah.
That's what happens with me. And it's exhausting being the most beautiful boy. Everyone's always coming up to me, telling me how beautiful I am, asking me to touch my beautiful hair. It's terrible.
So you just have to start more shows. Spread yourself out even more.
It's rough. I did warn you about this terrible comedic persona of mine. I am truly sorry for being this way.
No, I do not doubt that, as this show continues on and further, that I will become more and more of a character as I become more and more bored of being a radio show host. And
absolutely.
My natural inclination towards bits will increase exponentially until suddenly we have characters on the show that are people. Yeah, I have no doubt that at one point there will be people just playing characters on the show, and who knows what this show will become. Last week,
be a real best show on WFNU.
I've been compared to best show, and I'm realizing that I'm just going to increasingly all roads lead to best. I've never listened to best show.
It's pretty good.
It seems like something I would really enjoy, but it's one of those things where at the time when I had it added, I was in that weird headspace where I was like, oh, I have to listen to everything, when really I don't. Really, I could just start whenever. And
you can start, you can stop. Yeah.
But
Yeah, I've tried to stop viewing culture as homework, you know?
right.
Yeah.
Unless there's like a strictly linear thing, you don't have to like listen to everything. That's,
No.
you can just pop in here and
Be
there.
nice if you could, but yeah.
Yeah, no, during the last episode, we had like natural conversation led us to a short bit where somebody was pitching me as an executive on their game, and I felt
Uh-huh.
a powerful urge coming over me, and that minute and a half or so of role play we did was like, oh no, oh no, what if this show becomes this? As someone who has like a regular role playing game group that meets every Thursday, I'm like, I could keep doing this kind of stuff. I love doing in-character bits, but
In-character bits are like the best bits to do. Once you know a character well enough, you could just, it's just jazz, baby. You're just hitting notes on a scale. Yeah.
Exactly. We're just like living our best life out here on the internet. We don't all have to be just like regular internet people talking to Twitch chat, hanging out, and like shout like, hey, thanks for the bits, thanks for the follow, thanks for the subscription. Fucking Bong Lord, you're my favorite.
Yeah. A Bong Lord. Hey, man, I heard about you. Hey, I heard you took the biggest rip. Hey, great stuff, Bong Lord.
Thanks for the bits, Bong Lord.
Bong Lord, you're my hero.
Thanks for
Bong Lord, you saved all those kids from that weed fire.
by smoking all of the weed out of the fire.
You smoked all the weed, Bong Lord, and you saved those kids.
What a hero.
Oh, I love you, Bong Lord.
He's the hero of my chat.
Your eyes are as red as fucking Sauron's mom.
Listen,
Bong Lord, you smell like a Twinkie factory exploded, and you're my hero.
I understand the Twitch lifestyle, and I do not begrudge people that have to live it, but I will be dead and in my grave long before, and you'll have to reanimate me, put me on the screen, Peter Cushing style, before I ever have a fucking little gift that pops up with a sound that says, Bonglet is gifted 15 tier 1 subs. What are your feelings? What are your feelings on Peter Cushing? You have feelings on Peter Cushing?
About Peter Cushing?
Yeah.
No opinion.
No opinion.
They sure did puppet his corpse around like a meat marionette. That was fucked up.
Not a fan of. Okay. I think about like just recast. As a lot of children of my era, I assume, or a lot of people of a certain age, I grew up watching a lot of The Simpsons. Like a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And there's a later season. Which
I get that vibe.
Yeah. There was a later season, which I forget what it was. I think like Mel Gibson was in the episode. I think it was that episode.
Yeah.
But I just remember there's a line about like talking about how they own celebrities and when you're all dead, you'll be dancing with vacuum cleaners. And I think about that a lot. And it's becoming terrifyingly true.
Yeah. Yeah, there's this book I read back in high school called something like Virtual Zen, which is about this guy who his father was a famous musician who like took his own life, and then this kid starts playing music to deal with it, and he gets really famous and popular, and it turns out the same record company that worked with his father comes and recruits him and like wants to sample his music and like be able to take a mocap of him so that he can they can put him in music videos, let him be there, and he finds out that his father didn't like compose any of his own music. It was all done by like algorithm and all that kind of a thing. And the only thing that like kept his father going and employed was that he never allowed these people to like take his image like this kid had. This kid discovers they're just cranking out AI generated versions of his music and just says, hey, you can't do this. And they say, well, we don't really need you for this anymore.
Exactly.
Anyway, that's the entire plot of the book. It's like it was pretty good, but it was written in like 1985 or 6 or something, and it is truly just eerily prescient.
Yes, why hire actors when we can just take old actors and just put them on the screen and just put their faces over people? It's truly a real nightmare, and I'm not.
It really is. Some musician friends of mine were posting about how there's all this AI generated music now, and
Yeah.
like the people who make it are being like, yeah, we're just doing lyrics training now. Soon we're going to be able to make music without any people being involved. And it really is a thing of just like, hey, AI scientists, you
Yeah.
know this is inherently bad, right? You know this is a bad thing
Right.
you're doing.
Yes.
You must realize that you're viewing art as you're turning art into simple commodity to be sold, and that's not the point of art.
And I think this, to some extent, I think they're probably going to replicate a very specific style of music and a very certain like wedge of art that, I mean, it's probably heavily corporatized anyway. So I suppose what difference are you making, whether a computer or a room of people is making the music? And it's the same people who own both of those things anyway. I guess what I'm saying is,
but like a room of people, at least there's people making a living making art. Like
Right,
it's maybe shitty corporate art, but like it's still it's still better to have a person make something, because that does serve that person.
Yeah.
Admittedly, that does have like the soul sucked out of it by corporations, but we shouldn't be making it easier for corporations
Right.
to do that.
So what the AI people do is they have to at least ensure that they have a job going forward. So they have to make it so they have to maintain it at least.
They have to make that AI incredibly buggy.
Right.
Just breaking down when somebody sneezes in the same room.
Planned obsolescence, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Something that will at least, allow for somebody's like survival.
Well, they could go just a classic murder drive to it. Every once in a while it just goes hog wild and starts killing people. I feel like that's a pretty good way for an AI scientist to just make sure they have revenue going forward. Because every once in a while they're gonna be like, the music AI went into kill mode again and blew a bassoon right through Joe's ear, blew his brain straight out the other side.
Or the other alternative is that there are no AI writes all music, and all musicians are just gig performers who perform at live shows for the computers, because computers can't do that, at least.
No, it's true. They're just performing for the computers to get the raw data.
Right.
Oof, what a dystopian! This bit is making me genuinely sad. I'm gonna pull the brakes on this one.
So
this is genuinely bumming me the hell out.
Tell me about AI. Tell me about AI designed audio dramas performed by Vocaloids.
No. I won't. I refuse. I refuse to tell you about my dark future.
Yeah. But on a brighter note, wait a minute. Do we have a brighter note? 1 second. I'm trying to see if I can find a brighter note here.
Okay, sure.
Let me just tell me about that thing audio dramas do on Sunday where they don't self-promote. What's that thing called again?
Audio Drama Sunday?
Okay, as it says on the tin. Perfect.
Right as it says on the tin, Audio Drama Sunday, baby.
Tell me about that, because I think that is an interesting thing that I don't, if it exists in other art forms, I don't see it as much.
Yeah, sure. Well, Audio Drama Sunday is like a thing the audio drama community does, right? And it's for promoting audio dramas. But you don't promote your own audio drama. That's just the etiquette of it. It's a thing you do. You shout out other audio dramas you like, that are made by, that you enjoy, that are made by your friends, that you just think, hey, this could use sort of a boost, and it's you just say, oh, this show does this well and that well, and talk it up, and then you make a little post about it and tag it with the Audio Drama Sunday hashtag, and tell people, hey, go listen to the show, and the idea is, you're sort of lifting each other's ships, and it's not necessarily like reciprocal. There's no expectation that if I, boost your show, you boost mine. But it's a thing that the community sort of does as a whole, because audio drama is an underappreciated medium.
Right.
It's kind of died out in the U.S. and been revived. Well, it's been revived in like the past 23 years, but it's you still tell somebody you still have to explain it to most people what it is. So for people who like it, you're like, you want to see other shows of this type succeed. So so it's a thing where it's you build bridges, you build community by doing this, and you don't promote your own show, which is hard, I think, for a lot of people to sort of wrap their head around, because so much of Twitter and social media is about when you have a thing is saying like, hey, check out my thing, and you don't really have any expectation that anyone else is ever going to care unless you really boost it really hard.
Right.
And it's kind of like really refreshing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can get on a roll, please.
No, I mean, you have 6 other days of the week to promote yourself.
Exactly. Sunday is the Lord's day.
Right. Sunday is when you rest.
Sunday is when you rest and feverishly promote other people's shows.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it's about a train. Like, even if they don't promote your show in return, they're promoting somebody else's show, and maybe that person will promote your show.
Yeah. Or, just maybe maybe you're just helping somebody out to get their thing out there.
Right.
It's nice. It's a nice thing.
Yeah, people it just art doesn't work in a vacuum. You can't.
Yeah,
everyone can't.
It's a.
Now you can talk. If I'm ever talking and you're ever talking in front of me, the Indiepocalypse rule is plow through Andrew and he will shut up.
Okay. Yeah, it's just a nice way to share these things. Yeah. No. Please go on.
Okay. No.
The max rule is please keep going.
Okay. I forgot what my train of thought. I think it was yes. No. Because I think like the self-centered nature of promotion is like only works for like I need to be successful and I need to promote my thing so that I can be successful because everybody wants to be successful. But that kind of like self-mindedness is like everyone is trying to appeal to the huge, massive base. And that's like
it's like everyone's building one huge exactly. And everyone's building their own single width tower of bricks,
Right.
When you should be building like a broad foundation with other people and then you can all build on it together.
It should be like a pyramid.
A large like a pyramid. Like and it's like sort of an idea or a plan or I guess a scheme you could say.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
To market this sort of pyramid of ideas, sort of on like multiple levels, like sort of a multi-level marketing scheme.
Right. And I think
if you will.
And I usually like to let everyone else lay their bricks first so they get the most exposure, and then I just put my brick on the top of the pyramid because I just think like I want to go last,
Yeah, we call that yurtling.
Yeah, and just because I'm at the top of the pyramid doesn't mean mine's the most important brick. I mean, it's the golden brick at the very top of the pyramid. It has more sides than everyone else's brick.
But
all of its sides are exposed.
Our pyramid, everybody. We built it together.
Right. Just because only one of my sides is obscured and the rest of you only have one side facing doesn't mean my brick is more important. It's just
more visible, and that's fine.
Think about all the times when my brick wasn't even on the pyramid.
Right? Your bricks have been on this pyramid so much longer than my brick.
Right.
My brick will be the one that everyone remembers.
Yes. It's just the most. Listen, the rain trickles down from my brick to everyone else's brick. It just hits my brick first.
That's right. And if my brick's the wettest and the tallest,
I often
that's because it's the best. Like if I got a wet, tall brick. Ugh.
They often say that about me, though I'm the wettest and tallest in the business.
I've heard that before. They say Indiepocalypse, that's the wettest, tallest, indiest game mag in the biz.
Yes. How do I fucking talk about describing things that people don't know how to describe? I never know how to describe Indiepocalypse to people. I'm like, it's a zine, but also I use zine in the broad conceptual. There's also a zine inside of the zine. There's a zine that you think of as a zine, but I also think in terms of like a conceptual feeling, it's got a zine mood to it, so I like to call it a zine. But really it's a bundle, but it's not a bundle because it's one package, but it's not a...
The way I always pitch to people is, hey, you remember back in those old game magazines, they had those demo discs? Well, imagine if the demo disc was the entire magazine.
Right.
But they were full games, and also it's still a magazine.
Yeah, and it's not demos, but...
And I see you've gone cross-eyed.
Right. Yeah. This has come off often of like I am ill-equipped to describe it because I just want to use this one. Indiepocalypse is a hell of a long title. And I am often very lazy, and if I feel like
I wouldn't know anything about making long titles like True Tales of the Illuminati or Wizard Seeking Wizard.
Right.
Those are, I wouldn't know anything about that.
No, those are very long titles. You were promoting those on Twitter. They would take up half of your tweets. Yes,
they would. And they do. so much. It takes up so much that I don't even have room to say anything about the thing.
Right.
And the concepts for my things are so stupid and convoluted, and I have
Right.
to explain the medium that they're in a lot of the time.
And then you have to put hashtags and links.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah, truly awful.
And I have no
The-
time
the-
no time to view
No.
to view Reddit or go anywhere else to do promotion.
God, I took this past week off of social media,
Yeah.
and I just got back on yesterday.
Oh, well, you missed a hell of a
Which
week.
also, hey, I missed a fucking month of a week. Jesus.
Now, usually people will post and say, "Can you believe something happened this week?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know that happened this week." But somebody posted, "Did you know Bean Dad happened this week?" And like, I did not. That did feel like 5 weeks ago.
We truly are just damned with the sheer amount of history that's happened in the
Yeah.
past week.
That was the first and maybe ideally the last time where I truly forgot something happened this week.
We'll see.
Although I did in my
We might just be accelerating.
in my
Yeah.
I saw that he clearly had hired PR and gotten a bunch of people like to write about his his angle of it, and I imagined the local news version of it, like the story, like the human interest piece, and it broke my brain to hear someone be like, and they're calling him they're calling him the Bean Dad. How this one father's cute story to his daughter has got him into some hot water on social media. And then fucking John Asshole shows up and he's like, yeah, so I was just telling a story about my daughter and how I was a real piece of shit. And I just couldn't tell her how to look up a can opener or whatever.
Yeah. Now imagine how this sounds to me, who has been off of social media all week, and I have the barest glimmer of who the fuck Bean Dad even is.
Yeah.
I feel like this is how my parents must feel all the time.
You know what? A week to have a personal anecdote. The week before that, I had to open, maybe a couple weeks, some period of time before that, I had to open some evaporated milk, which did not have a pull tab,
Sure,
and I had to use a can opener, and I didn't know how to do it, and so I just typed in, "Dear Internet, how to can opener." I'm like, oh, you turn it sideways.
How do I give up?
And you know what? It worked. It took me about 5 minutes, and I feel like I learned that lesson for the future. And I feel like if somebody had told me to do it the hard way, I would. This is like a broader thing where I think there's so much information available to everybody. You should be able to use it readily.
Yeah.
And no need to waste your life relearning how to do everything. If the one thing college I think was good for is it teaches you how to learn things, or if you did good at college, it teaches you how to effectively learn things and research.
Mm-hmm.
At least in my college experience, depending on like what you go to college for, I suppose.
I would say so. It was definitely learning the skills of learning.
Yeah.
And I got like my master's degree in cognitive psychology, which huge mistake. But
and then presumably you learn some
helpful
skills
in that matter.
Presumably you learn like the skills of whatever you got your degree for. But I think learning to learn can be important. But I don't think we should
I got a paper or two published. It was wasn't worth it.
Right. I don't think you should pay tens of thousands of dollars to learn how to effectively research things. Seems like a bad investment.
Here's the thing. They don't really teach you that much when you do a master's degree.
Yeah.
Like, it's mostly like, hey, you're paying us. Great. Here's the opportunity to do some work for us.
Right.
That might lead you to something someday.
How would you like to pay $40,000 to network?
Oh, fuck me.
But as we are, speaking of fuck me, we're getting towards the end of the segment. And this beautiful segue means that, Max, I need something from you that is not a game for all the people out there in game land.
Sure. You know what? Postcards. This past week, I have been writing postcards to my friends, and it's been really, really nice. And so I'm gonna just talk about two things with this. One, it's nice to write postcards to people. It's nice for you. It's nice for the person getting it. But for me, it makes me feel connected with my friends as I write them. It's really relaxing. I get to just write dumb, goofy shit on there, or something heartfelt or whatever. But it's a postcard, so it doesn't have to be that much. But it's just nice, and it's nice to send it out. And when you get it, we don't really send postcards anymore. It feels like you're getting like a little present. It's nice.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever sent or received a postcard.
You should do it, dude. It's great. You want a postcard? I'll send you a postcard.
Oh no, I'm fine. That goes against my hermit lifestyle.
I want a postcard.
Oh, great. Tell you, send me your mailing address. I'll send you a postcard. And that'll be great. I
just want a postcard.
You just want a postcard? Okay.
just take a postcard, throw it up into the air, and hope for the best.
No.
Sorry?
I was saying, just take a postcard, toss it up into the air, and hope the wind will carry it to where it needs to go.
I'll give it to a passing bird, and it'll find you. I believe that truly. The other thing about postcards,
yes.
The other thing about postcards, I want you to invite you to contemplate that it used to be that like everywhere you could buy a postcard of that place that you went.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't just assume someone would be home, that you could call them. That you would be able to like text them a thing or call them a thing or whatever. It was hard to get in contact with people. So every shitty motel had their own postcard that if you were stopping there for the night, you could buy a postcard, scribble something on it, and send it off, just being like, this is the room I'm in. And they're not, and like, I have a few of these postcards from these just shitty like 1970s motels with nothing to recommend them except that, they've got a pool or something.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to think about because this was the only way, you could reliably really just connect back with somebody was to go to the counter of the shitty motel, buy a postcard of the shitty motel that no one's going to really care about looking at, that you wouldn't even bother snapping a picture of on your phone today, and write on it and send it off. And these were things like people kept and treasured.
Yeah.
And that's fun to think about for me in a way. It's fun to have that, make that, to feel that connection with that time. And I recommend staring at an old postcard and just thinking about things, which I realize now that I've said it out loud just is frankly sounds incredibly boring, but
listen,
it's not.
As someone who this year looked up videos and managed to find an old video walkthrough of a local outlet mall that I went to because I had like the vaguest memory of it and I wanted to solidify what that place looked like. And weirdly, someone on YouTube had that. Sometimes it's weird. It's nice to like connect with the past in some even very superficial way.
Yeah. It is. It's nice to displace yourself from our current hellscape, even for a moment.
Yeah. And with that, speaking of displacing ourselves from our current hellscape, we're going to be going to break. Matt, thanks. Max, not Matt. Thanks for talking to me.
Yeah.
I'm looking at something on the screen.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We're going to go to break, and we'll be back in about 3 minutes and 50 seconds. Thank you all. Goodbye. Hello, and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. I'm here, still your host, Andrew, and we are in our third segment of the show with our third guest of the show, Gordy. Hello, Gordy.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well, Good. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I slept for a lot of the day.
I did too, honestly.
And it was great. It's all I've been wanting to do for like a month now. Just take a day and sleep.
Yeah. I woke up at 7 and I was like, I'll go back to sleep, and then I woke up again at like 11:30.
That sounds better.
And I was like, sometimes it is very easy to not get enough sleep, as it turns out.
It is very, very easy, especially when you are working on some kind of project for me.
Right.
Because I get really sucked into it and just push bedtime later and later.
Yeah, and then suddenly, where did your bedtime go? There is no more bedtime. It's just all time is work time, and then.
Yeah, which is not good for you, but it's kind of an easy trap to fall into. I'm not a proponent of like you must be productive and on your hustle all the time, because that's a good way to burn yourself out.
Right. Yeah. For a little while, I was on a good habit of like stopping at a very specific time every night, even if I was like sort of in the middle of something. And I honestly need to get back onto doing that.
Mm-hmm. It takes a lot of effort to just like regulate your day a little bit.
Right. Because like, especially when you're working independently or semi-independently or like, small scale, small pub kind of stuff, it can feel like you always need to be working because you're never like, you're not successful yet.
Yeah, I think there's like in this, maybe in this country specifically, there is sort of a lot of pressure to like, the pull yourself up by your bootstraps narrative, and if you have not done that yet, then you need to just keep doing it until you do.
Right. And everyone else looks like they're fully pulled up by bootstraps, even if they're not.
Yeah, and indie games famously an easy industry to make it in.
Yes.
With a lot of money available to you if you do it right.
Yeah, there's no like doom-saying buzzwords that exist in the indie games space. But so on the subject of tell me, how did you find Indiepocalypse?
I think I found it through itch as well. Probably through the jams page, because I remember I started writing games like, I don't know, 18 months ago, and was really at that point just kind of entering different jams, and was probably looking for another one, and came across this and had something that I wanted to submit.
Yeah, and it worked out just fine.
Here we are.
Yes.
Fame and fortune, finally.
Well, let's hold back on the fortune. Although I think you have. Do you remember what issue you were in offhand?
I think 4.
I can look it up real quick. I have it here.
4 sounds correct to me.
Yes, you're right. I've gotten like mostly good at remembering what everyone is in. Like weirdly somehow, but also I'm at like 130 people now. So
oh yeah, that's great.
It kind of gets buried. Oh no, you don't have a payout coming your way. I'm sorry. You're not on the list.
I forget about some of my older projects.
Right.
Much less keep track of everyone else's.
Yeah, so I have to like, who are all the people within like issue 6?
Yeah.
And a new month comes out every single time, and more people, and then it's just a lot to keep track of, a lot of people.
Yeah, that is a cycle that I am glad that I don't have to follow personally.
Right.
I know a lot of people who run Patreons, and they kind of have to design something every month, and I find it very hard to kind of make myself rise to that deadline without really disliking having to do it.
Yeah.
I do not know how you go through the whole process of finding and curating all these things every month.
It's weird. It's like Indiepocalypse, because it doesn't make me any money, is almost like a reverse Patreon in a way for me.
Yeah.
So it's like,
that's a good expression.
I just pay people out every month, and I mean, making an Indiepocalypse Patreon, indiepocalypse.com/Patreon. Sign up now and get cool stuff, And that's, for me, that's basically like a subscription. Like, I'm already putting out something every month, so all I do, all it is people paying for it without having to go to the itch page to do it.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I don't have to worry about that at all. But yeah, that is like the idea of Patreon is like a thing you have to like put out, like a thing to force yourself to put something out every month. Seems like if you weren't already like, a podcaster or someone who already is in that like monthly routine, there is that kind of like, well, I guess I have to do something. Like if you're like in the game space, for instance, making indie games, you're really dedicating yourself to like forcing that creative process every month.
Yeah, and I kind of have learned that I sort of need to ride the waves of my ADD. And sometimes that means I'm going to write a bunch of stuff in a short amount of time, and then there's going to be a period where I just can't make myself do it for a bit.
Yeah.
And it'll come around again, but it does not work on any kind of schedule.
Yeah,
But that's just me. I hear deadlines are good for getting your brain moving.
Right. Yeah, I think it can be it can also be like immensely stressful if you, for instance, don't have the time or something comes up and the deadline is the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of why for like cover artists and, starting with ideally with this issue and going issues forward, I'm also starting to commission games, but I'm trying to do it like 4 months in advance so that people have like whenever they find their weekend or their time to work on something, they find it during that 4 months.
Yeah, that's cool. So commissioning games for Indiepocalypse.
Yes. Yeah.
That's cool. I like that as an idea, and as a way to kind of get some unique, interesting stuff.
Yeah, because I was like,
In
someone
the
has
issue itself.
What? Sorry, go.
Just as a way to get some interesting stuff in the issue itself, like some unique stuff.
Yeah, because someone had suggested like, oh, well, maybe people aren't buying because the stuff's not new. And I was like, all the stuff is basically new. It's functionally new, but also people's brains are broken, and they're like, well, it's not brand new.
Yeah. Broken, especially over the past, like the course of the past year or so.
Yeah.
Because all we can do is doom scroll and stare at the screen.
Right. But so I was like, oh, okay, well, if I have some people things that are literally new, I guess that is nice for like a press release or something. For like, I don't know. I like it. I also like to just support artists. So, I think.
Yeah, I mean that's great.
I think it's good to pay artists to do stuff.
Yes, I agree.
Taking bold takes here on Indiepocalypse Radio. So you started 18 months ago. Do you spend a lot of time on any given game, or do you set yourself like conceptual lengths that you want to give yourself?
I sometimes end up spending a lot of time on things. Said I kind of started doing jams and then was working on a game during the period of the jam, which is like a couple weeks, depending on what it is. And so I wouldn't spend that long on it. And more recently, I have I used to be do some newspaper work and some layout work. And so I've kind of rediscovered graphic design a little bit, and I've been spending more and more time on kind of visual layouts and things like that, and that has kind of extended the time that it takes for me to put something out, and working around other jobs and things like that. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes things just really come together really quickly, and sometimes it's just you kind of have a sense that there's a good idea in there somewhere, and it just takes chiseling out the junk around it to find it. I don't know. Conceptually, I think I kind of circle the same things a lot.
Like the same ideas you're trying to express in different ways.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's typical of a lot of people, but I feel like there are like a couple of core emotions that I really am into and keep trying to bring out in different ways, and maybe one day I'll hit.
I think that is
really
I'm sure if you looked at artists across every medium, you could say, yes, that this is what this person is trying to, everyone has a question that they're trying to solve, and maybe it's unsolvable. But you know what I mean. Everyone is trying to figure out their thing, and it comes across
something that just kind of digs at you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's probably inevitable. But I certainly get that feeling. I don't know. I like world building, and I like
Yeah.
kind of a sense of discovery, and so I keep.
But hello, we're back. That is all
Great.
beside it. God, what was I even saying?
What were we talking about? That's a great question.
You asked,
Some
you asked Andrew where how he like curated or like what he looked for.
Oh yeah. When you were curating Indiepocalypse
Perfect, because
submissions.
I must have even missed that then, because that must have been when my audio thing died.
For some reason, I remember that, but yeah, that's what you left off.
Yeah.
One second. Let me just say, whoops, back online. While I regain my footing and think about that question. So yes, how I curate Indiepocalypse. Well, I kind of go into it my broad goal is that I want to, show the breadth of what indie games can possibly provide. So I want to present. So I also want them to be interesting. So I would look for things that are primarily first things that I think that are interesting, first of all, and kind of work from there. And interesting is also a very broad, ill-defined concept to me, and it could mean basically anything. So I say largely things that aren't blatantly trend surfing is an important thing. So if things are clearly this is just being a lot of the other things that exist right now, or this is a clear movement, that it's I don't want to do that, and those will become less interesting to me. But the general process is I kind of just feel it, do I enjoy this, or do I go that's something, there's something here. I guess that's the rambly version of my curation process.
So even the the non-trendy stuff amidst the indie scene.
Yeah. If somebody makes something that is very very on trend, I will be it has to work harder, and even that exists with it within Indiepocalypse. PS1 style horror games are neat the first couple times, but now I'm now you got to be something else.
Seems like there is a lot of that on Itch.
Yeah, it's very Haunted PS1 has done a lot, and to help foster.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can find on Itch for very little or no money.
Right.
When people ask me for recommendations, I kind of just send them Itch pages.
Yeah, or just even someone made
because
that.
there's so much good stuff being put onto that, and I'm sure other websites, but Itch is the one that I know that costs very, very little.
Yeah.
But it's really cool.
Slide them that I think someone made that roulette site for the racial justice bundle, so that's thousands upon thousands of games.
Yeah, and that was a big moment for everybody on Itch. I submitted something to that bundle.
Yeah, I mean, and I submitted issue 4 to that bundle.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So
cool.
A lot of people are trying it regardless of ideally that's you're double dipping on getting people to pay attention to you or notice your games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I am glad that. I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword that more attention on these things causes some reaction,
Yeah.
to that increased attention, and it seems like things get a little bit less I don't know what the word I want here is, but like a little less free form maybe.
Right. Right.
When there's sort of increased scrutiny or increased attention on your platform.
Yeah. Well, 'cause then people
But
like,
also,
they see like what is the successful thing, and everyone wants to like very quickly iterate on that idea.
yeah, but you know, I also think it's good
Yeah.
if like small creators can get more, like a little bit more coverage.
Right.
Like generally speaking, that's a really good thing.
Yeah, I don't even know what coverage looks like in like the tabletop space.
To my knowledge, not a ton. Like
Yeah.
I know you have sites like Shut Up and Sit Down, and I think Polygon does some stuff sometimes, but like considering the amount of stuff that comes out in like sort of your typical month, there's not very much coverage of it.
Right. So it's like indie games, like self-published indie games, and this is like indie. Like I made this myself, not indie. I have like $1 million studio indie, you know.
Right.
That we just happen to not be owned by Electronic Arts or something. That's like
Mhm.
niche as it is. And then like tabletop is like this further niche within that niche.
Yeah, it is for sure. Like it is not for everybody, but I have gotten like I find that sort of within like the creative arts, the things that I really like are things that I feel I can't get anywhere else. Like if there's a movie or a book or whatever that kind of does something that nothing else has really done, or provides an experience that I feel like I can't go out and get
Yeah.
anywhere else, like that is really what gets to me. Not to disparage the anything that is popular or
Right.
or has a big following, like the things that you want to like, but I know that for me it is these experiences that are more tailored.
Yeah, you can exist. It turns out, and this can get lost easily, people can be more than one thing and enjoy more than one thing.
They sure can, yeah.
I enjoy lots of pretension and high art or whatever, but I also sometimes I just go online and I play Magic the Gathering, you know?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I used to be a big, well, not a big Magic player, but I used to be a big like non-competitive Magic player.
Right. That's mostly what I am. It's like, hey, I get to play with friends, and now they've given me a digital system that lets me play Magic and not pay money for it. I'll take it.
Yeah, that's good.
I like the weird. All of these eventually diverge to me talking about playing Magic, so I'm not going to talk about me playing Magic and how much I think it's an interesting, like, intersection between design and play, and there's so much legacy to it, and it's so like busted in so many ways because they just keep making things, and there's different design ethos over decades of work. What is horsemanship? It's on like 5 cards. What is he?
Sure, yeah.
It's like unblockable, but
I can't imagine designing for a game with that big of a
right,
like that big of a card pool.
right, and like that's the only the pool that's interesting to me is like the not standard like legacy or historic or whatever they call the formats. It's just like use all the shit you want.
Yeah. Speaking of, you were talking to one of the earlier guests about AI creating music. There's an article where a neural net was asked to design new Magic cards after reading a bunch of them, and there are some really interesting results in there. I'm not going to try to quote any of them, but it kind of runs the gambit from like just incomprehensible nonsense to this AI is connecting things that like human players or designers just didn't think to include, and you
Right.
get some interesting results.
What was I? Oh no! I thought I was thinking of AI. So tell me, how soon do you think AI is going to recreate role playing game experiences?
How soon? I don't know.
You're looking forward to? Can't. So
I'd try it.
yeah,
Like if an AI designs a role playing game, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll like it, but I do want to see what that looks like.
I remember now pre-crash what my question was. What I was going to ask you, because
Yes.
you're talking about how you enjoy building out, do world building and that sort of thing. Do you have
Yeah.
like, do you have like your tabletop opus in you, like your 400-page idea, like that you're like, oh, I'll write this eventually, or do you prefer working on smaller projects?
I don't have that. I used to. Um, I feel like I was trying to think of one. Like a year ago, I was like, oh yeah, I really want to do something that's like bigger and more complicated. And I don't know if that's true. I think a lot of that is like setting stuff. And like sort of along those lines, I am interested in providing, like, if I can think of a really interesting setting that I think is worth the space in a book or in somebody's head to like learn about, then yeah, maybe. But I also like, I really like including elements of kind of collaborative world building into anything that I write. And so also I kind of think like, well, maybe I just want to keep doing that, and I want to give somebody the structure to build their own setting. Like where I think I am trying to go is I think I've written a number of games that are sort of session zero games, like it's pure world building.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out good and interesting ways to sort of have players collaboratively build a setting and then be able to do stuff in that setting, as opposed to just saying like, all right, you spent like a couple hours doing this, take it to another game, I guess.
Right. Yeah, because tabletop is very interesting because there is like a large, thriving, I think, indie space in tabletop, but at the same time, tabletop equals D&D, I think, is true for a lot of people.
For sure, yeah. And I don't know that I have much to say about the Dragon game. Other than like there are other games out there, and some of them are really, really good. A lot of them are really, really good.
Right. So it's like, how do you like trying to navigate that space of, well, when like the broad culture views your game by like a very specific genre and a very specific play style to describe an entire medium.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is, like, you start to think, like, what does your approach become? Like, you describe like making session zero games that people take to other settings, and like the idea of taking, like, mixing game systems and settings together, even of like, well, here are these mechanics, but these are mechanics too. You can use them in any game. Here's like a module that you can just bolt onto whatever your favorite tabletop game is.
Sure, yeah.
Or like,
yeah, and some people are doing great stuff with that, like supplements and things like that. I haven't personally, but I'm glad people are doing it.
Yes. Now, say, do you prefer to generally? Now, this is, I don't know if this is a true divide. I think it's an easy divide to see of like the idea of like cruncher versus story. You know.
Cruncher versus story.
Crunch is the term I use. I don't know if it's a generic term.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, which do I prefer to play or design or what?
Or do you see that as a divide, or do you prefer to design towards one or the other? And is it the same as what you prefer to play?
I feel like I have trended toward more rules light games.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I guess it's a divide. I don't know. I don't love trying to like
Right.
put things solely in like different categories. But yeah, I think that maybe it's just my attention span or kind of what I'm interested in. But if I'm gonna play something that is like really tactical and has a lot of crunch to it, I will shout out Lancer, which has an incredible supplement platform called CompCon, that handles sort of a lot of the management of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a really excellent tool that makes things flow in a way that it just wouldn't otherwise. So I think like I'm still interested in that experience. I just want like good tools to make it smoother, because what I don't like is going into a really crunch heavy game on and spending a lot of the session like just kind of dealing with like, oh, I can't get my Roll20 macro to work.
Right.
I need to fix, which like nobody likes that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's different moods, both cool things. If I just like let myself really lean into things, I think designing something like that would be really interesting.
Right, because crunch doesn't have to equal like combat necessarily.
It sure doesn't.
You can use...
I think they kind of like have become associated, but that is not necessarily the case.
Right. It's like, I think how a lot of like VR or whatever, you're holding a thing. So what if we made that thing be a gun? It's like an easy 1-to-1 for people to like latch to. But you could like have an overly complicated system of dialogue rules that involves intense like numbers and rolling and overly complicated systems.
I'm in to try it. If somebody has something like that they're working on, then show it to me, because I'm interested in seeing what that's like.
I may do that sometime down the road.
Yeah, go for it. Sounds fun.
I've been adapting 69 love songs into tabletop games recently, or like the past 4 months. And I came across Book of Love, and I was like, that's what I wanted to do, but I was like, oh shit, this is gonna be way too long for me to make.
Yeah.
And I just skipped over it, and maybe it'll happen in the future. Have you attempted any sort of like adaptive? Because if you do a lot of game jam, do you primarily work around game jams?
I don't anymore. I kind of have enough like project ideas that I keep joining jams and then not submitting anything, just because I have like my own project stuff that I kind of feel like working on more than a jam entry.
Right.
So yeah, not as much anymore, but I will still submit to a few.
Yeah, I think it's because I think they are good for teaching you like what a deadline is. I think it's important to know what a deadline is and to do one.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to like get started if you were interested in like trying to design something and you're just not sure where to begin. I think that is a good place to do it.
With
Sorry, what was that?
Oh. Hello?
Hope we didn't lose our sound again.
Hello? No, I'm good.
Hello. All right. There we go.
Yes, no. This microphone gave me zero problems for years, but then I decided, what if I plugged it into the back of my computer and unplugged it from the microphone? And since then, it has gotten very saucy about cutting out sometimes if I, for instance, accidentally have my headphone cords wrapped around it and move around too much. But I had a thing that I was thinking of telling and asking you a question about. So I will keep talking until my brain circles back around and finds that question. You were designing games. Oh, you design games for game jams. Yes. How is it working with the infinite canvas of just typing words into a document as opposed to like clearly having to, like, if you make a video game, for instance, you have like, oh, I have to have a space to build out. I have all these things. But tabletop games are like theoretically infinite.
Yeah, I started with video games.
Oh.
So maybe starting in sort of that environment with a little bit more structure helps. I don't know. I think I like tabletop games because you don't have to do any debugging or anything like that.
I mean,
Again, like it is just like when you have the idea, it is much easier to go from I have a cool idea to I have a thing I can share with somebody.
right. And debugging usually just means changing some dice around a little.
Yeah, like I mean, playtest, absolutely, you should do that. But yeah, you do not have to fight every step of the way. At least in my experience, I'm not like a great programmer or anything.
Oh, neither am I. And you did independent video game design?
Yeah, I mean, just on my own in Unity.
Okay.
Putting stuff up on itch.com again.
Oh, you mean itch.io?
Or yeah, itch.io.
I don't know what itch.com is. I want to find out right now.
Always fun to have a risky Google.
No, that's not even a Google. This is a straight. I'm going straight to the URL.
Oh, nice.
Actually, I've got a spinning wheel, so it doesn't look like anything's happening. But, and you did everything by yourself?
Yeah, I like being able to do stuff
Right.
on my own. I think because I like to work on my own schedule, and like when I have the energy and the motivation to work, I want to just do stuff without roadblocks, and so that works for me.
Now, did you hide all of these games from history at this point? Because I remember not seeing any on your page. I'm on your page now.
I mean they weren't great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of decided like I am gonna continue to use itch for tabletop stuff, and just not worry about people coming across like buggy versions of the game projects that I was doing.
Right, like these old weird, like, oh well, I had an idea, and then I was not good at it, and then I guess no one needs to. Sometimes it's nice to have them forever. Sometimes you don't need to have them sitting around forever.
Right. Yeah.
But what was one of your? Do you remember what these games were about?
Yeah, I really like puzzle games, and so I was kind of trying to flex puzzle design, which is kind of its own skill set within game design, I think.
Right.
Like being able to think of good puzzles and ways to execute them.
Yeah.
I think is really challenging. And so I was trying to do that with different like kind of puzzle platformers. I think are relatively accessible things. So I was kind of trying to go for that.
Because it's about like developing your own sort of like puzzle rule set, but also making it accessible to other people.
I think like having an idea for a mechanic that is interesting and is like complex enough to produce a lot of interesting puzzles, but not so complex that nobody is going to be able to kind of get their heads around how it works.
Right.
Is tricky.
Yes.
But I still really like to play puzzle games, even if they are very hard to design.
Have you encountered any puzzles in like? I assume you also play. Do you regularly play role playing games as well, or just design?
I try to. When I can, yeah. I definitely like to play as much as I can, and that is the other big thing. Like, if you want to design stuff, I think you should. Not that like you have to, but I think it's good to play stuff.
Right, it helps. To give you like a perspective on things.
Nothing else is just good for ideas.
Right. Like, what is the system missing, or what do I want to do?
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, did you ever design or encounter any like puzzles or riddles in your role-playing game sessions? And how were they?
I'm sure I have, but nothing like really sticks out. I mean, like back when I was playing D&D, our DM would put some puzzles or riddles in there, but nothing is like really jumping out at me.
Yeah, nothing super dense or nothing. So more like just like your DM went to riddles.com and clicked through a couple times.
Yeah, maybe not quite that, but
like that nice,
one step above.
The beautiful, enjoyable at the moment, but utterly forgettable middle ground.
Yes.
So much art lost in that crevice.
I know.
So we're approaching our end. I'm presuming, I can't remember how much we had beforehand, but I just assumed it was going to be, I gave us like, whatever. So I got to ask you, as I ask all guests, one recommendation of a thing that's not a game. It doesn't need to inform game design in any way. It's just kind of like broaden your horizons kind of thing.
Yeah, well, speaking of puzzles, I think the thing that I like to recommend to people is a book series. It's four short books together called The Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe.
What kind of gene is that? Is that Gene?
Gene, yes, okay. And Wolfe. It's a science fantasy series. I think like the less you know going in, the better. But it is kind of like reading a fictional autobiography from the future. And the way that the world building happens is kind of all filtered through this main character and his perceptions and biases, and so it's kind of like piecing together how this world works. And what's happening in this world, and like a really fascinating process that got me kind of fixated on this series for a while. And I really, really like it.
I should really like find a way to like, if I was smart, what I would be doing is like taking these recommendations and like building out a list somehow. Mm-hmm. But I don't do that. But so just listen to this. What was that again? Oh no, I've got another.
The Book of the New Sun.
Book of the New Sun, yes, because for some reason, Tales of the Sun I think is a game, and I had it stuck in my brain. I crossed the wires.
Maybe.
But my wires crossed aside. Thank you for this participating in this broken segment.
Thank you.
Luckily, we recovered fairly quickly. I haven't checked the folder to see if that... I think OBS automatically records everything, so I'm pretty sure that recording is still in there, even though it crashed. I'm going to go to break, and I'm going to check that and see what happened. See you all in the other side of the break in about 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Thank you all. Goodbye.
Okay.
Hello, welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. I'm back with most of our guests. Max had to leave, so let me take care of that little piece of business right there. Let me get out studio mode. And where is he hiding? Oh, nope. Whoops, hello, you're still here. There we go. McGordy and Julian are still here. Hello.
I'm still here, yeah.
So this segment, which I have not fully kind of like thought out. One of these days, I'm getting dangerously close to hosting games during this segment, but I have not done it yet because I have not gone through the effort of writing things to have them at this thing. So I guess this is more of starting off as like, Did anyone have any other questions for any of the other guests during their segments? Like, I needed to ask this, but I didn't want to barge in and interrupt.
I mean, yes and no, right? I've just enjoyed listening.
Yeah.
Same.
You don't really need to. Sometimes this segment has been like, yes, let's go, let's keep going, let's keep talking, and then sometimes like, I'm done. Goodbye. This is 2 minutes long.
Right.
Sometimes it's 40, sometimes it's 2. It's all about like the mood of the room and how everyone's feeling.
Yeah, I don't have any burning questions. It is so you are both currently in Massachusetts, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Very different parts of it, though.
Yeah, I don't know if you are disconnected for this, but I am very recently of Massachusetts.
Oh, okay. Wow, so this is a whole mass podcast on accident.
Or now I am not, but I
Okay.
recently moved. Yeah, so just I don't know, I'm acknowledging that the Massachusetts area is strong.
Yeah, there are a lot of like I think there is like even in New England there's a strong tabletop scene around here as well.
Oh,
There
yeah.
is.
Oh, yeah. Menacing board game couples are like a Camberville fixture. There's all kinds of sitting down at a tabletop. It's like the thing. You have friends who are coupled. They live in Somerville or Cambridge. They're going to invite you over for board games. It's going to happen.
Like I have met other people at Boston Hassle like selling zines of games as well. Oh no, I forgot his name off the top of my head. Will. His name is Will. I've never said his last name out loud. Jobs.
Jobst? Yeah. Yeah, I know Will.
Yeah, so like I met him at Hassle once, and he was talking about all these other people who are like, "Oh, I know all of these tabletop names."
Yeah, Will is a great designer. If any of you are interested in looking around for stuff,
Yeah,
definitely recommend anything Will has designed.
yeah, for something like as large
Cool.
scale as like Black Mass,
Yeah, definitely.
or something smaller to like I forget the name of that zine about watching cats.
That one I don't know.
He made a zine about. Does not apply now because you can't go and really view cats anywhere. But
Well,
I guess it's outside the comfort of your own home.
Yes.
well.
But I also have no familiarity or comfort zone with cats outside of. I like all of the names that exist within cats, and that's all I know about it.
Oh, like the movie?
Or I guess technically the book or the play. I just know all of the. Yeah.
I've never seen Cats. It sounds baffling to me.
Yeah,
That sounds really bad.
I am generally like not a huge like I'm not a musical person.
yeah.
Generally like I've seen one musical live and it's the sequel to Phantom of the Opera, which is not very good. Maybe it's because I've never seen the first one.
Yeah, we're missing out on the lore.
Yeah, I've never seen Phantom of the Opera. I have seen the weird sequel, just kind of Andrew Lloyd Webber writing fan fiction about his own musical. But I cannot wrap my head around the Cats experience.
I'm familiar with the poetry that led to Cats. I've seen a stage production of Cats. Once upon a time, I had a career in theater
Really?
and have worked on a lot of shows. So I've seen a lot of shows from working on them.
Mm-hmm.
And Cats is one of the few that I didn't work on but just saw once, and I hated it. And I have zero interest in the movie, and I don't understand why people were like, it will be funny to see this and suffer through it. I'm going to pay dollars to see this in a theater. And then those people have to live with that being the last movie they saw before you couldn't go to a movie theater anymore.
Right.
And like, you made your choice. The last movie that I saw in theaters before you couldn't go to a movie theater was Parasite, and I don't regret that choice ever.
I think mine was Knives Out. I believe.
Seemed good.
Yeah, I heard
But
that was decent. I heard it
yeah,
was surprisingly good for like who was in it or something weird like that.
yeah. I guess I don't know if like Ryan Johnson is fairly well, respected or revered or whatever as a director,
Yeah.
and like a somewhat like it's stacked in the way that like indie things are stacked, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Stacked with a bunch of people, and you're like, oh yes, like Keith Stanfield is in this movie, where it's like,
Whatever that means.
yeah, exactly. It's like very indie stacked, I guess. Where it's like, oh, I know these people. They're in small roles in other movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is your general like? So, Julian, you talk about like why did you see Cats? Do you have it? Do you enjoy? Do you ever enjoy bad media?
I love terrible things.
Okay.
Love terrible trash.
Okay.
I love things, and I think I alienate a lot of my friends because it will be like, I watched that show you love. It's terrible, and I'm gonna watch more of it, and then people feel confused because they're like, I don't get it. What do you mean? You just said it was terrible, and then you watched all of it, and I was like, yeah, I don't always watch things because they're enjoyable. There are other reasons to watch things, but I don't do it like ironically. I don't do it because I'm like, this is so bad, I'm having a funny time,
Right.
feeling better than it. I just, like I studied art. I've seen a lot of shit because you should some things that you can't get through because they're boring or they're offensive, and other things you're like, I hate everything about this, and I'm going to watch it. I'm going to,
Right.
reflect on it. And there are reasons to watch something other than you find it entertaining. I think that probably sounds absurd.
No,
but
there is
just that-
like,
I just, it's like I worked as a designer, like a sound designer. Like when people are like, what's your favorite kind of music? I'm like, that's a ridiculous question. My personal music collection is enormous, and it has almost nothing to do with what I personally like to sit down and listen to. It has everything to do with like this situation requires a type of music that is appropriate to the scene. That has absolutely nothing to do with my personal taste. It has to do with like what the director wants or like what the show commands. So I feel that way about everything.
yeah.
And so yes, I do watch things that are bad. That's my long answer. But I can't stand Cats. I think it's a mess and not interesting.
Like I said, I guess I enjoyed the poem. I've never read them, but I guess I must enjoy the poetry just because I like all the names. And what is that?
Yeah, the names are cute.
And that's like half of the title of the book, right? Or the poem?
It's kitty cats.
Yeah, something about like something guide to naming cats, right?
Yeah.
That I don't know.
Yeah.
No, you're onto something, but none of us know what we're talking about, so it's great.
I just like the mouthfeel of saying Rum Tum Tugger,
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I've sometimes fall down bad holes. I really enjoy. I think I've talked about this on the show before. I really enjoy bad. I don't want to say bad criticism seems mean, but I really enjoy limited criticism sometimes, or people being very critical with having like, I guess the antithesis of what you described, with having a very limited view of culture that they have like experienced.
It's kind of funny, yeah.
And just watching them like reach and grab for these like ideas and this analysis of something. They're like, they feel like, oh, if you just watched 2 more movies or read 2 different books, you would have like this massive language for what you're trying to describe, but you don't.
Yeah.
You only watch Disney movies, so you lack that kind of thing.
I think my only like media analysis pet peeve, if somebody's like, I've literally never seen anything, I'm like, okay. But one of my pet peeves is when people like describe factually something that's just like in the movie, but is told in visual language, like especially in animation, like, but also in film, like every scene is designed.
Right.
Everything's in the place it is for a reason. So when people are like, my media analysis is that the character goes through the door, and that's symbol for like emotion coming to a conclusion, and Easter eggs you might have missed, and it's like a thing that's in plain sight.
Yeah.
it just wasn't commented on by the characters explicitly.
Right.
And I'm just like, that's not like a secret analysis. Like, you're not really doing anything but literally describing what like the storyboard artist was probably given in post-it form, like that kind of gets to me, where people are like, oh, I figured out this analysis, and I'm like, this is not an analysis, this is like a description of what's happening in the picture.
Yeah, but if if Tony Stark doesn't go, why do you look so sad, Captain America? How am I supposed to know Captain America is sad?
Yeah, it's like stuff like that drives me nuts. Where people are like, oh, did you see his yearning and that little loco? And I'm like, yes, I saw the movie. I saw the actor act. I don't know what you were watching, but like I saw some human faces and they moved in ways.
Right.
And I understood that things were being communicated that were not being spoken aloud. So I guess that's probably where I become a bit of a snob, because I'm not trying to be put people down for like missing things, because Lord knows things go right past me all the time. But it's just like, yes, art that is mostly pictures sometimes tells you things with the pictures.
And yes, that I like to think that people will eventually like come to that conclusion naturally, but I sometimes get obsessed with people who are clearly well past that point and will never reach that conclusion. And will forever, like, dip a tiny toe beneath the surface and just say, ah, yes, look at this wellspring that I've discovered.
Yeah, it's just really strange to me. That's what passes for media analysis.
To have the confidence of those people.
Yeah. But, I guess the other side of it is that I feel weird when people start ascribing moral instruction to narrative as well, where they're like, well, this character that I like died and therefore they're being punished. And I'm like, I don't know that it's that simple.
No, listen, we could talk forever about how people, you can't like villains because they're bad people and also those sorts of things.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
That's a whole other nightmare of critical analysis.
Yeah, I don't like that stuff. People's personal moral compasses and behaviors are not like, you can learn some things from their media consumption. If somebody's got like an obsession, like a very particular explicit takeaway from that obsession, like, yeah, you could probably come to some conclusions, but like, hate that thing where it's like, oh, I saw a picture of you and I can see the books on your bookshelf and now I know exactly what kind of person you are. And I'm like, you don't.
No, that's
I read books. I read all kinds of books. You saw a shelf on a bookshelf. You don't know shit. Stop doing that. Like, it drives me crazy.
Right, because you could rearrange your shelves the next day and suddenly you're a whole new person because different shelves are in.
Yeah. And, people being like, oh, you like this classic book, you must be some like asshole MFA guy. And I'm like, I'm definitely not. I found this in the little free library, in my neighborhood, and I've never seen it before in my life, and it looks goofy, and maybe I'll read it and like find it boring and put it back in the little free library. In the meantime, you're like, I know everything about you because I saw your bookshelf. I'm like, people are not a one-to-one map with things they consume. This is a very consumerist way to look at individuality or to look at people. Like, identities aren't private property that you have, like pogs, and conversely, like, media consumption isn't your identity.
Yeah.
Everything is treated like cards you have in your hand that you either have or you don't, and they're like very literal. Sorry, I'm ranting, but that shit drives me crazy.
No, it is also like this very much like nightmare extension of parasocial relationships, where it's like people are taking that very vague critical analysis and applying it to humans as if they were characters in a story.
Yes.
And it's a nightmare for all involved.
Nightmare, and it's why I've become weirder and more reclusive.
Yeah, right, because you don't need to have your Zoom on a talk show and have to think about what is behind you, because like, what are people going to think about what is framed in my shot? How many plants I may or may not have?
Yeah.
how many books are there? Which books do I face spine outward and which ones do I hide?
Yeah, right.
Do I include movies? What painting do I want to move to this portion of my house so that people can see it?
I think there is a lot of bad faith criticism out there.
Yeah.
Or like criticism with a particular agenda.
Yeah, like I think of a lot of it as like criticism with the aim of solving, is how I think about it most often.
Right.
Yeah.
Today we're going to close the book on this art form.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I get that people want to classify things in their heads, but there's a time to stop doing that.
Yeah, we were having a good talking with someone last week, and his suggestion to people to get into is just to get into like avant-garde as a concept, as like art that is kind of like, not designed to be solved or even necessarily strictly understood, and it, like expand how you think about things by encountering the unsolvable, and like maybe that'll help extend into the other parts of your life.
Yeah, I like avant-garde stuff, whatever that is. And
Right.
What's so funny to me about, if you think of like, what's the first thing that pops into your head when I say avant-garde art? Just like say any dumb thing that pops into your head, the image that like, you think.
It's
What
like
do you think?
Right. It's
I'm
like
an
I don't
artist
even
or-
know. Like it's in my mind, it's an abstract thing. It's a static image, or sounds being played over it, and it has some goal maybe.
Sure. Okay. But
Yeah.
you have like a picture in your head when you think avant-garde art. There's like a generic avant-garde art, right?
Yeah.
That pops in. Yeah. So yeah, the thing about the avant-garde is it never gets to live in the present. People
Right.
either say that's too weird and too like ahead of its time, but not of this one, or they roll their eyes and they're like, "Oh, this Dada shit."
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And they're like, it's so passe. But at what point does it get to live in the present? It never does.
Right.
And that's always very interesting to me because like you said, like the whole takeaway is to be present in your life, in your finite time on this planet, just like experience something that you can't rationalize.
Yeah.
Like think about that.
But then it's like your brain naturally starts to think about it, and then you start to naturally try to rationalize it, whether you're like thinking about doing it or not.
And that's like fine, but like go through it.
Right.
Through it. Be like, wow, that made me feel really sweaty. What was that about? Think
Right.
of be in your body and experience it. When I was really young, a good friend of mine, sat me down and made me watch like fucking Mulholland Drive.
Right.
And the thing that was like so useful about that experience was that I stopped trying to be like, oh, I need to know what's going on in this
Yeah.
movie. I stopped trying to feel like it was a puzzle. Like I wasn't playing Myst, I wasn't trying to solve the movie. And I never played Myst very well anyway. I can't actually figure out those puzzles.
Yeah.
But I was just like, oh, images are moving in front of me and they make me feel things. And I was like, oh, you can just like watch a movie.
Yeah.
You can just watch a movie. And like that sounds very stoned. I get that.
Yes.
And I know that's not for everybody. But I like not having to, explain everything all the time. It's exhausting having to say I know what's going on.
Right.
Don't.
And how convenient that we have someone as big and popular as David Lynch to provide like, here's a nice entry point for you.
Yeah, here's something to make you uncomfortable for 3 hours, and I'm like, wow.
Remember that Twin Peaks thing you liked? What if go somewhere else a little? Just go a little bit step further.
I don't know. Thank you for tolerating the rant.
No.
Now I'm thinking about art.
That's what the show is for. I have to curb myself because I often like this. Just mentioning Mulholland Drive is like, well, I get really pissed off when people call things Lynchian when all they mean is I saw Twin Peaks and aren't small towns weird. And
Yeah.
It's like that's what they mean, and it's like nope, I don't like it. I hate it when people sort of very genericize and flatten artistic movements or different artists' ideas into like the broadest obtainable concept, and then just use that as buzzwords. And I get annoyed by it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, fuck, even just watch like fucking whatever, Blue Velvet. Like, it's close enough to Twin Peaks. To like, but it's also, whatever. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of different artists. You don't even need to ever watch him. You can watch. There's a million other things out there in the world.
Ever seen the art films of Crispin Glover?
Hey, is Crispin Glover the guy I'm thinking of?
He's the guy you're thinking of. He plays fucking George McFly in Back to the Future. And you guys were talking about AI actors and things earlier. He actually very famously like sued the Back to the Future director because when they went to make Back to the Future 2, he didn't want to be in it. So they like put prosthetics on a different actor to look like Crispin Glover.
Yeah.
And he was like, "You're cashing in like on my face without paying me. So I didn't want to be in this movie. You can't just make someone look like me. What the hell?" He won. And then he kind of went nutso and like had started this like bizarre avant-garde art career of his own on the side, which he can do because he's a movie star. So he has tons of money and like 2 castles. But you know, he just makes these like barely watchable movies where he sets out specifically to fill them with content that you can't put in a corporately distributed film. And there are things like he casts actors who have Down syndrome playing themselves and gives them like on screen like love scenes, and they're like actual couples, you know, and like who are perfect. Like this is the thing, it's like they're just people who are acting in a film, but he's like you can't actually like cast people with disabilities and give them a love scene. Nobody will finance the movie. So part of the things that are in this movie are like, here's some disabled people having a love scene. And then it will just like cut to like somebody melting a slug with salt. And he'd be like, you can't actually show an animal getting harmed in a movie. So here's the slug being melted. And I'm like, wow, I don't love that, but you're certainly making a statement, you know? So it's like image after image where he's like everybody involved in the making of this image, except the slug, I guess, you know, is, nobody's being forced. Nobody's being like embarrassed, but you can't put this in a Hollywood movie. No. And I was just like, this is a really weird thought exercise that just took 3 hours of my life, and I'm very upset now and have to pee. But it was like really cool when I saw some stuff that he did, because I was just like, oh yeah, sure. You know, the other things that people do with art films, which is just be like, I don't know, I can get away with it now.
Right. I have money and I can spend the money to do whatever I want.
Yeah. I don't really know where I was going with that story, except that sometimes when people have only seen David Lynch and they're like, and that's the only weird filmmaker. I'm like,
right, exactly. There was that Hollywood Reporter article about like, because of Parasite, films can be weird now. It's like,
oh my God.
Buddy. Let me tell you about. I mean, they're super like as obvious as it is. Like you could have you write about film. Have you not heard of like the Criterion Collection? That's like if you want weird foreign films, they've been making. There's a company that says, "Hey, we've been making them for decades."
This is a weird foreign film that we liked. Yeah.
Yeah, Parasite's in that collection.
Is it really?
Yeah, I think I got added recently.
I guess there's like a whole subculture about what is and isn't in the Criterion Collection. That I don't know anything about.
Right. That's a weird thing. I like that, like that kind of curational like body exists, and especially like they are helping to preserve some films in a way that would have gotten lost, and they're helping to restore them and keep them like new and bring them to new audiences. Like I think, you know, you see occasionally the sentiment that piracy is the true preservation. It is, but because, you know, if no one will cover it, then, you know, piracy will eventually keep things alive.
Yeah,
But
it's complicated.
also, I think, like, one step of legalese further, you get things like the Criterion Collection that are like, well, we're helping them keep them in the culture as well by, selling them for money, which is what people need at the moment because that's just how people contextualize things. And you can't, it's weird to have conversations about things, I guess, that are just, up on the Internet Archive. I don't know. It's like a weird market museum. I don't know. It's hard to understand, but I think things like that do good work for the most part. They give people a rubric or a Wikipedia page to look at.
And here's a hot question for our remaining other guests. I don't mean to be talking so much, but either of you, both of you, tell me about something that you found because you pirated it, or you found it and got it for free. You basically got it the way you're not supposed to, but it actually did fundamentally expose you to something you wouldn't have found otherwise, right? Maybe you don't have a specific example, but I do like talking about oh yeah, I got this thumb drive for my friend in school and oops,
Right.
It changed my life. Something like that.
Well, that was certainly music early on for me as on LimeWire,
Yeah, same. I would say either doing LimeWire or Kazaa or just friends burning CDs for me.
Yeah. Did you ever go and spend money on a band that you found out by MP3s?
Yeah, either I did or people gifted it to me,
Right.
I asked for it for my birthday or something. But yeah, I'm sure that I did, and the initial piracy and led to sales later.
I have a modded PlayStation 2 that I was burning games as demo discs more or less, especially Japan only games as a way to try them. Because I can mod it so I can boot anything I can boot these ISOs I burned to a DVD-R now. And now I can try all these things. I imported games because of it, because I was oh, this gives me a way to try these PS2 games that I otherwise would not have. And
I got the weirdest exposure to video games as a kid. My dad worked for a publishing company that put out Computer Gaming Monthly, which was I don't even know if it still exists, but it was a game magazine, obviously, of the 90s and some other time. And so he got all these demo discs and prototypes just laying around the office at work. And he wasn't involved in video games in any way. He just worked for the publisher that printed the magazine. And so my house was full of games that no one else had, and demos, and just the weirdest stuff. Lost to time. And secretly I'm man, I should have kept all of it.
right, cause I wonder how many of those demo discs maybe never became full games even.
Most of them, yeah.
You're
Some
sitting
stuff
on
just doesn't fit.
old history. That's how people say, oh, look, I found this old unfinished ROM and we sent it in and we uploaded it to the internet.
Right. There's tons of it. Tons of it.
But that all said, we went too long. Now I can't go out and get food unless I drive you even further away. But I might do that.
Fling yourself into the sea and take a bite out of a fish.
No, if I drive further, there's a place open till 11. Or wait, it's not 24 hours anymore.
No, very little is.
Yeah, that was a ideal teenage experience is the 24-hour store. You have
Going to things at night when you're not old enough to be out at night, that's the coolest thing.
One of us has a car, we can drive 2 towns over and just go to Walmart because it's open 24 hours and we're up at 1 o'clock in the morning.
I genuinely think that's thrilling when you're like 16 or 17.
Yeah, it's. I miss it. I miss
Sorry.
that kind of like that sort of feeling of, well, I have nothing to do, and let's discover this world that exists around us.
Right.
But I think we are like well into our 2-hour mark. We are like coasting past it.
We started at 7.
Yeah.
We're
And
at,
like that
almost
technical
hour
hiccup
two.
was only like 10 minutes at the most, I think. So I'm going to. Oh shit, Max is gone. So Max is gone, but we're gonna talk about plugs. I'm gonna let I'll just do Max's plugs for him, because I know them offhand, because I make sure to write all this stuff down. So he's got 2 podcasts: True Tale. Oh shit, I forgot the name of it offhand. True Tales of the Illuminati and Wizard Seeking Wizard. If I was Max, that would be what I was talking about at this moment. Check those out. Subscribe on podcasts that you like and rate them 5 stars. If you hear a podcast, rate 5 stars. There's no harm in it, really. Rate this podcast 5 stars. It does something, I'm sure. Now, Julian, what are your plugs? Do you have any plugs?
Like my stuff or the people's stuff?
Your stuff.
Stuff.
I'm just
I have a
covering Max
book.
because he left.
Yeah, I have a bunch of weird games. I wrote a Italo Calvino fabulist RPG over the summer called Inscrutable Cities. That's on my itch, and it's going to get a big update sometime this winter, and lots of goodies. So if you like games, do that. If you want something very short and kind of meditative to horror, depending on your personality, I have a 1.5 pager called "Looking at the Fucked Up Guy Looking at You," which was in Indiepocalypse.
Yep, I realized as I was saying that I forgot to mention what your 2 games were in Indiepocalypse, so good covering of that base.
Yeah, it's fine. And that's about having like a relationship, not romantically necessarily, but like a social relationship with a person you don't like, but you're sort of forced into close proximity with for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And like how you start to resemble each other. And so that game can actually be really scary if you have any personal baggage in that area.
Yeah.
And it can also just be kind of fun if you don't. And then I have a book. Everyone on the Moon is Essential Personnel is the name of the book. You can buy it on itch if you like to read PDFs, or you could buy a paper copy anywhere on the internet that sells books.
Yeah.
As short stories. They're good.
Yeah, I saw like something like you got on some list that I forgot about. Was it Barnes & Noble?
It was a couple. Barnes & Noble listed it as one of the best books of 2020. So did Publishers Weekly.
Oh, wow.
So did Bustle magazine. A bunch of places wrote it up, which I'm very proud of.
Yeah.
It's actually a good book. People should read it. That's
They
my plug.
definitely
Those are my plugs. I'm done.
Well, thank you. Thank you for those plugs. Gordy, what have you got to plug?
I will plug my itch.io page, which is gmurphy.itch.io. I've released 2 things fairly recently. One is a anti-corporate cyberpunk Tunnel Goons hack called Mainframe, which is about hunting rogue AI programs in cyberspace, if that is your kind of thing. And the other is called Palimpsest, which is about creating layers of civilization and how things pass from one civilization to the next and get recontextualized.
Well, perfect. And your game that was in Indiepocalypse number 4 was Anomalous. Just to get to get all of our paperwork out of the way.
Yes, correct.
And I will say on my part, hey, you should buy Indiepocalypse. All issues. Every one of them. Just go to indiepocalypse.com. They're all there. And you can also check out the different contributor pages. Be like, wow, look at all these cool people. And go, wow, look how they're... Click on the map and go, wow, they're all from all over the world. Every continent. And then go to indiepocalypse.com/Patreon and subscribe to that. It's like, I don't have to think about wanting to buy it every month, and that'll just do it for you. You get charged automatically. Submit your games to indiepocalypse.com/submit or zine shit to indiepocalypse.com/zine. Like, you have comics or mini reviews or whatever. indiepocalypse.com/I want to be on the radio if you want to be on this radio show, or have like your animations on it or your whatever kind of videos you have on it. I think those are all my things. There's probably more. Just type indiepocalypse.com/fucking something or other, and I'm sure you'll find your way there. Thank you all for being here. That's the end of the show. Goodbye.
Thanks for having me.
Goodbye.
I have to open.
Nice to meet you all. Bye forever.
Goodbye. For most of the time, I'm not in studio mode because I had to take out Max, and now
Unfortunately, I am my own dog, my own fur companion, my own old lady on a forum who types in glittery decor. Unfortunately, I take myself out walking every day, and I hand my legs to the feet, and I give my head to the leash. Every other day I'm wondering, what's a human being gotta be like? What's a way to just be competent? These sweet instincts ruin my life. Every other day I'm wondering, was it a mistake to try and define what I'm certain's mad incompetence? These sweet instincts ruin my life. I can smell well, it's all the time. Not K through 8 nor K-9. For human, grossly underqualified. For canine, grossly overqualified. I don't blend in at PetSmart, and that truth remains for the Walmart. 'Cause in either case they say to me, what the fuck is lost in aisle 3? Every other day I'm wondering, what's a human being gotta be like? What's a way to just be competent? These sweet instincts ruin my life. Every other day I'm wondering, was it a mistake to try and define what I'm certain's mad incompetence? These sweet instincts ruin my life.
hope you enjoyed the flight, and have a nice day.